They were the kings and queens of the spaghetti western, but what happened when the cameras stopped rolling? Some found eternal glory, while others faced tragic ends that will leave you speechless. We're looking back at the cast of Once Upon a Time in the West to see who is still standing in 2026. The transformation of the lead actress is truly unbelievable. See the icons then and the reality now. Charles Bronson as harmonica. Born Charles Dennis Bukinski on November 3, 1921 in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania, the rugged actor stepped into cinema history in Sergio Leone's 1968 epic Once Upon a Time in the West. At the age of 46, Bronson's portrayal of harmonica, the mysterious, vengeance-seeking gunslinger who communicates as much through a haunting musical instrument as his sparse dialogue, became a cultural touchstone. The role propelled him to massive international stardom, epitomizing the strong, silent archetype of the spaghetti western and solidifying his image as one of cinema's ultimate tough guys. Despite playing ruthless vigilantes and stoic killers throughout his career, Charles Bronson was remarkably different from his on-screen persona. Intensely private, introverted, and soft-spoken, the devoted family man preferred spending his time painting and being with his children over partaking in the glitz of Hollywood. Professionally, his journey was marked by significant hurdles. He spent decades toiling in supporting roles in America and famously had to travel to Europe to finally achieve leading man status. Later in his career, he battled severe typecasting, finding himself locked into a cycle of increasingly formulaic and violent revenge thrillers, most notably the later Death Wish sequels for Cannon films, which made it difficult for him to secure diverse roles that showcased his broader acting abilities. In his later years, Bronson remained an enigmatic figure, starring in a final string of television movies like the Family of Cops trilogy in the late 1990s before quietly retiring from acting. His personal life was deeply shaped by the tragic loss of his second wife and frequent co-star Jill Ireland, who died of breast cancer in 1990, though he later found companionship again and married Kim Weeks in 1998. Charles Bronson passed away at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on August 30, 2003 at the age of 81, from pneumonia complicated by a private years-long battle with Alzheimer's disease. He was laid to rest near his beloved farmhouse at Brownsville Cemetery in West Windsor, Vermont, leaving behind an enduring legacy as an iconic cinematic antihero, Henry Fonda as Frank. Born on May 16, 1905 in Grand Island, Nebraska, the legendary actor shocked audiences when he stepped into the role of the ruthless killer Frank in Sergio Leone's epic western Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. At the age of 63, Fonda's portrayal of the cold-blooded, child-murdering mercenary became a cinematic milestone, subverting his decades-long reputation as Hollywood's ultimate symbol of American virtue. His chilling performance, anchored by the shocking reveal of his famous baby blue eyes, cemented Frank as one of the greatest and most terrifying villains in film history, offering a masterclass in acting that broadened his cultural impact. The merciless psychopathic character of Frank stood in stunning contrast to the deeply moral, upright heroes Fonda was known for, as well as his own shy and deeply introverted real-life personality. While he relished the opportunity to break out of his good guy typecasting, Fonda's career was not without professional hardship. As the classic Hollywood studio system collapsed in the 1960s and 1970s, he experienced periods where prestigious film roles were difficult to find. To maintain his career and financial stability, he was forced to turn to television series like The Deputy and The Smith Family, which ultimately faced cancellations, as well as taking on rigorous theatrical tours. Off-screen, his profound emotional reserve led to a turbulent private life, marked by 5 marriages and famously strained, distant relationships with his actor children Jane and Peter Fonda. In his later years, Fonda finally reconciled with his children and achieved a poignant career triumph. He starred opposite Katharine Hepburn and his daughter Jane in the 1981 film On Golden Pond, a deeply personal project that mirrored their real-life father-daughter dynamic. The brilliant performance earned him his first and only competitive Academy Award for Best Actor, though he was too frail to attend the ceremony, leaving Jane to tearfully accept the Oscar on his behalf. Henry Fonda passed away at his home in Los Angeles on August 12, 1982, at the age of 77 from heart disease following a prolonged battle with prostate cancer. His death marked the end of an era for classic Hollywood, leaving behind a monumental cinematic legacy that continues to be celebrated decades later. Claudia Cardinale as Jill McBain, born on April 15, 1938 in La Goulette, Tunis, then a French protectorate of Tunisia, the Italian-Tunisian actress brought Jill McBain to life in Sergio Leone's epic masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. At the age of 30, Cardinale's portrayal of the strong-willed former New Orleans prostitute became a defining cinematic touchstone. As the emotional center of the film, Jill McBain stood as a powerful emblem of resilient civilization and feminine strength, revolutionizing the portrayal of women in a gritty, spaghetti western genre that was otherwise heavily dominated by men. Despite her character's hardened and assertive nature on screen, Claudia Cardinale was naturally shy, intensely private, and fiercely independent. This striking contrast defined much of her early life. A self-described tomboy who grew up speaking French Sicilian and Tunisian Arabic, she struggled with the extroverted demands of the film industry. Professionally, she faced the significant hardship of having her signature deep, husky voice dubbed over in her early Italian films because she did not learn Italian until she was an adult. Behind the scenes, she endured immense personal and professional control under her producer and future husband, Franco Cristaldi, who forced her to hide a secret pregnancy and publicly pass her infant son off as her younger brother to protect her reputation as a rising star. This highly restrictive experience left her feeling like a prisoner for years before she eventually broke out of the studio mold to forge her own uncompromised path. Claudia Cardinale continued to work prolifically in European cinema and theater for decades, ultimately appearing in over 130 roles and serving as a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. She largely avoided the traditional Hollywood studio system in favor of creative freedom, cementing her status as an enduring icon of world cinema. Cardinale passed away at her home in Nemours, France on September 23, 2025 at the age of 87, following a long illness. Her death marked the end of an era for the golden age of European cinema, prompting widespread international mourning and an outpouring of tributes from industry peers and world leaders. Following her passing, French President Emmanuel Macron praised her undeniable talent and cultural impact, declaring that the world would carry her memory in the eternity of cinema. Jason Robards as Cheyenne. Born on July 26, 1922 in Chicago, Illinois, the distinguished actor first brought his immense theatrical gravitas to Sergio Leone's epic Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968. At the age of 45, Robards' portrayal of Manuel Cheyenne Gutierrez, a lovable romantic outlaw framed for murder, became a cultural touchstone in cinema. He infused the rugged spaghetti western with a deep, melancholic humanity, and his nuanced performance as the cynical yet noble bandit stands as a pivotal element in what is widely regarded as one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces of the genre. Despite playing a dusty, uneducated outlaw who lived by the gun, Jason Robards was an erudite and highly disciplined intellectual of the theater, famously known as the definitive interpreter of Eugene O'Neill's complex stage dramas. This sharp contrast between his refined, stage-trained persona and the rugged movie bandit highlighted his immense range. However, behind his prolific success, Robards struggled with profound personal hardships, most notably a severe decades-long battle with alcoholism. This addiction took a heavy toll on his personal relationships, leading to multiple divorces, and impacted his professional reliability. His life and career nearly ended abruptly in 1972 when he was involved in a near-fatal car crash on a winding mountain road. The devastating accident shattered his face, requiring extensive reconstructive surgery and leading to a grueling recovery period where his future in acting was deeply uncertain. Robards ultimately overcame his personal demons, achieving sobriety and a triumphant career resurgence. He reached the pinnacle of his profession by winning consecutive Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor for All the President's Men, 1976 and Julia 1977, ultimately completing the prestigious Triple Crown of acting and Oscar, an Emmy and a Tony. Married 4 times, including a high-profile union with actress Lauren Bacall, he found lasting stability with his 4th wife Lois O'Connor and was a father to 6 children. He continued to deliver powerful performances in his later years, notably in films like Parenthood, 1989, and Philadelphia, 1993, before making his poignant final appearance in Magnolia, 1999. Jason Robards passed away in Bridgeport, Connecticut on December 26, 2000, at the age of 78 from lung cancer. His passing marked the loss of a titanic figure in American arts, and his legacy was immediately honored when Broadway theaters dimmed their marquee lights in tribute to his monumental contributions to both stage and screen. Woody Strode as Stoney. Born on July 25, 1914 in Los Angeles, California, the imposing athlete-turned-actor brought Stoney to life in Sergio Leone's epic spaghetti western Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. At the age of 54, Strode's portrayal of the menacing duster-wearing gunman waiting at the train station for harmonica became a cinematic touchstone. Though his screen time was brief, Stoney's silent, ruthless demeanor, highlighted by water dripping onto his hat from a water tower in a masterfully tension-filled opening sequence, offered a deeply iconic depiction of the violent, lawless Old West that remains etched in cinematic history. Despite his character's frequent depiction as violent outlaws or stoic, intimidating brutes, Woody Strode was an educated, highly composed, and profoundly dignified man who broke racial barriers off-screen. A world-class decathlete and one of the first black players to integrate the modern National Football League, Strode possessed a gentle sophistication that contrasted sharply with the hardened savages or silent henchmen he often played. His career was marked by the intense struggle of Hollywood racism and severe typecasting. Because of his immense 6'4" physique and race, he was frequently relegated to stereotypical or ornamental roles. Though he delivered acclaimed barrier-breaking performances in films like Sergeant Rutledge and Spartacus, he often found it difficult to secure leading roles or substantial speaking parts in a heavily biased industry, eventually moving to Europe in the late 1960s, where casting was less constrained by race. Woody Strode continued to work steadily in international and American cinema for decades, enjoying a long marriage to his first wife, Hawaiian princess Lukialuana Kalealoa, until her death in 1980, after which he married his second wife, Tina Thompson. He appeared in dozens of films and TV shows throughout the 1970s and 1980s, becoming a widely recognized elder statesman of the Western genre. Strode passed away on December 31, 1994, at his home in Glendora, California, at the age of 80 from lung cancer. His passing was widely mourned by both the film and sports communities, and his final performance was released posthumously in the 1995 Western The Quick and the Dead, which was formally dedicated to his memory, cementing his enduring legacy as a trailblazing figure. Jack Elam as Snakey. Born William Scott Elam on November 13, 1920 in Miami, Arizona, the actor brought the menacing gunslinger Snakey to life in Sergio Leone's 1968 spaghetti western masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in the West. At the age of 47, Elam's portrayal became etched into cinematic history through one of the most famous opening sequences ever filmed. Waiting at a desolate train station for Charles Bronson's character, Snakey's silent, tension-filled battle with a buzzing fly, which he ultimately traps in the barrel of his revolver, set the gritty atmospheric tone for the entire film. The role perfectly capitalized on his grizzled appearance, cementing him as the quintessential Western heavy and creating a cultural touchstone for the genre. Despite portraying cold-blooded killers and ruthless outlaws on screen, Jack Elam's real personality was the polar opposite of his reptilian characters. Known by friends and co-stars as a warm, funny, and highly approachable man, he was a brilliant card player and a former Hollywood accountant who lived a remarkably steady life. This stark contrast highlighted the professional hardships he endured, He was severely typecast early in his career, pigeonholed by studios as the screen's most loathsome character due to his signature misaligned left eye, the result of a childhood accident where he was stabbed with a pencil. Breaking out of these villainous roles was a hard-fought battle, making it difficult for him to find varied work for years. Even when he secured leading or different roles in television series like the comedy The Texas Wheelers, he faced the professional sting of swift show cancellations before they could find an audience. Furthermore, his very entry into acting was born of adversity. He was forced to abandon his lucrative accounting career because the intense eye strain threatened the vision in his one remaining good eye. Elam eventually overcame his typecasting to enjoy a long and diverse career, finding great success in comedic roles and parodying his fearsome image in films like Support Your Local Sheriff and The Cannonball Run. Off-screen, he lived a quiet, stable life, far from the Hollywood spotlight, remaining married to his second wife, Margaret, for over 40 years. He spent his final decades residing peacefully in Ashland, Oregon. Jack Elam passed away at his home on October 20th, 2003, at the age of 82 from congestive heart failure. In keeping with his unpretentious nature, no formal memorial service was held per his request, and he was cremated with his ashes given to his family, leaving behind an indelible legacy as one of cinema's most unforgettable character actors. Gabriele Ferzetti as Morton. Born on March 17, 1925, the Rome native first brought the visionary railroad baron to life in Sergio Leone's epic spaghetti western Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. At the age of 43, Ferzetti's portrayal of Morton became a cinematic touchstone, offering a chilling depiction of the ruthless, unstoppable march of American capitalism and industrialization. Despite the character's crippling affliction with bone tuberculosis, his insatiable drive to reach the Pacific Ocean before his death created an unforgettable antagonist whose quiet menace helped define a genre and remains one of the most iconic figures in Western cinema. Despite the character's frail, unscrupulous, and villainous nature, Gabriele Ferzetti was famously elegant, deeply empathetic, and described by those who knew him as a refined gentleman, the polar opposite of the ruthless Morton. This contrast was a significant part of his artistic journey. Playing a disabled, power-hungry tycoon was a stark and challenging departure from his usual screen persona. His career was also marked by the struggle of being typecast in Italian cinema, where he was frequently boxed into playing the brooding, cynical bourgeois or the debonair playboy after his massive success in 1960s art house films. Furthermore, his foray into international blockbusters brought a distinct professional sting. Because of his heavy Italian accent, his voice was frequently dubbed over by other actors in English-language releases, including his roles in both Once Upon a Time in the West and the James Bond film On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which frustratingly obscured a vital aspect of his performance from global audiences. Gabriele Ferzetti continued to work prolifically in film, television, and theater for decades, cementing his reputation as a highly respected elder statesman of European cinema. He delivered critically acclaimed performances in a variety of genres, from Liliana Cavani's controversial The Night Porter, 1974, to a late-career highlight in Luca Guadagnino's 2009 acclaimed drama, I Am Love. A devoted family man whose daughter Anna Ferzetti successfully followed in his acting footsteps, he remained a private but distinguished figure in his home country. Ferzetti passed away in his home city of Rome, Italy, on December 2, 2015, at the age of 90 from undisclosed causes. His death was met with a widespread outpouring of grief and tributes from the global film community, honoring an expansive 7-decade career that solidified his legacy as an enduring giant of Italian cinema. Keenan Wynn as Sheriff. Born on July 27, 1916, in New York City, New York, the prolific actor brought a familiar, seasoned presence to Sergio Leone's sweeping 1968 epic Once Upon a Time in the West. At the age of 52, Wynn's portrayal of the local sheriff added a rugged classic Hollywood gravitas to the gritty world of the spaghetti western. His involvement helped anchor the European-produced film for American audiences, contributing his reliable talent to a cinematic masterpiece that is widely celebrated today as one of the greatest westerns ever made. Despite frequently playing blustering authoritative figures or gruff antagonists like the Sheriff Wynn, was a dynamic and thrill-seeking individual off-screen, harboring a lifelong passion for racing motorcycles and speedboats that contrasted sharply with his often stuffy on-screen personas. Professionally, he carried the heavy burden of being a third-generation actor, frequently struggling to carve out an identity outside the massive shadow cast by his famous comedian, Father Ed Wynn. As a perennial character actor, he faced the inescapable reality of typecasting, rarely securing leading man status, and occasionally sacrificing artistic depth to take whatever parts were offered to maintain a steady paycheck. In his later years, his career was made significantly more difficult by severe tinnitus and hearing loss, which created a profound and frustrating challenge for him on busy film sets. Wynn continued to act steadily across film and television throughout the 1970s and 1980s, fully embracing his reputation as a reliable and ubiquitous supporting player in everything from Disney comedies to primetime dramas like Dallas. He remained married to his third wife, Charlie Hudson, and spent his final years actively working despite his declining health. Keenan Wynn passed away at his home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, California, on October 14, 1986, at the age of 70 from pancreatic cancer. His death marked the end of an era for his famous acting family, but he left behind a monumental legacy of over 250 film and television credits, forever cementing his place in Hollywood history as an indelible character actor. Lionel Stander as barman. Born on January 11, 1908, in the Bronx, New York, the distinctive actor brought a memorable presence to Sergio Leone's epic spaghetti western Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. At the age of 60, Stander's portrayal of the gruff, world-weary barman at the rural trading post added an authentic grit to the film's atmospheric setting. Though a supporting part, his unmistakable gravelly voice and rugged demeanor helped anchor the iconic sequence, introducing the outlaw Cheyenne. His performance contributed heavily to the sweeping cultural impact and enduring legacy of a film that is widely considered a towering masterpiece of the Western genre. While he was routinely typecast as rough-hewn barmen mobsters or simple-minded thugs due to his booming voice and imposing physical presence, Lionel Stander was in reality a highly intellectual, articulate, and fiercely principled political activist. This profound contrast between his unpolished on-screen personas and his real-life convictions led to some of the most severe professional hardships an actor could face. A passionate advocate for labor rights and left-wing causes, Stander became a prominent target of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. Refusing to cooperate or name names, he was aggressively blacklisted in Hollywood, a devastating blow that effectively ended his American film career for over a decade and forced him into exile in Europe just to find work, leading to his eventual roles in Italian cinema. Stander spent much of his later career enjoying a remarkable resurgence on American television, ultimately finding his most famous role as Max, the loyal butler chauffeur, and confidant on the hit mystery series Heart to Heart from 1979 to 1984. Married 6 times over his lifetime, and the father of 6 daughters, Stander lived a rich and complex personal life while remaining active in the industry well into his 80s, even reprising his beloved role as Max in a series of heart-to-heart television movies. He passed away in Los Angeles, California on November 30th, 1994, at the age of 86 from lung cancer. His death marked the loss of one of Hollywood's most resilient character actors, leaving behind a legacy of a man who survived the career-destroying blacklist era to become a beloved fixture in film and television history. Frank Wolff as Brett McBain. Born on May 11, 1928, the San Francisco, California native spent years taking on minor genre roles before stepping into the shoes of the doomed Irish landowner in Sergio Leone's cinematic epic, Once Upon a Time in the West. At the age of 40, Wolff's portrayal of Brett McBain, the fiercely optimistic visionary who foresaw the coming of the railroad and purchased the Sweetwater property, became a cornerstone of the film's narrative. Though his screen time was relatively brief, his deeply affecting performance anchored the emotional stakes of the story, serving as the tragic catalyst for one of the most culturally significant and critically acclaimed westerns in cinema history. Despite playing a forward-looking patriarch filled with immense hope and determination for his family's future, Frank Wolff's real life was marked by profound internal darkness. Described by friends and colleagues as a perpetually smiling and warmly professional man, his charming exterior completely belied the severe, crippling depression he secretly battled. This sharp, personal contrast was compounded by his professional hardships. Unable to find substantial work in Hollywood and desperate to escape being typecast as nameless henchman, he uprooted his life to move to Europe. Even after establishing himself as a highly versatile character actor in Italian cinema, Wolff continuously wrestled with feelings of inadequacy, deeply frustrated by the sense that his career was stalling in B-movies and that true artistic fulfillment remained out of reach. Tragically, Wolff's internal battles eventually overwhelmed him during his later years in Italy, severely exacerbated by a painful nervous breakdown and the devastating end of his marriage to his wife Alice Campbell. Frank Wolff passed away in his hotel room in Rome, Italy, on December 12, 1971, at the age of 43 from suicide. His shocking and premature death deeply unsettled the European expatriate film community and served as the tragic inspiration for elements of Brett Halsey's novel, The Intimate Strangers, which explored the darker realities of the Roman film industry. At 2026 decades after his untimely passing, modern cinema historians and cult film enthusiasts have extensively reappraised his robust European filmography, finally affording him the widespread critical respect and enduring recognition for his immense talent that agonizingly eluded him during his lifetime. Paolo Stoppa as Sam. Born on June 6, 1906, in Rome, Italy, the versatile performer brought his extensive European theatrical background to the silver screen. At the age of 62, Stoppa took on the role of Sam the pragmatic and talkative stagecoach driver in Sergio Leone's epic 1968 spaghetti western, Once Upon a Time in the West. His portrayal of the slightly comical, world-weary buggy driver who transports Jill McBain to the doomed Sweetwater farm provided a memorable, grounded contrast to the mythic and violent gunslingers that surrounded him. Sam became an enduring piece of a cinematic masterpiece, offering a necessary touch of humanity and levity in an otherwise grim, operatic tale of the American frontier that continues to influence filmmaking today. Despite playing a rustic, somewhat simple frontier driver in the American West, Paolo Stoppa was in reality a deeply intellectual, classically trained titan of the Italian stage who operated at the highest levels of European culture. Far from a rugged horseman, he was a refined performer, renowned for his intense theatrical adaptations of Chekhov and Shakespeare alongside legendary director Luchino Visconti. This immense personal contrast highlighted a recurring professional struggle throughout his cinematic career. In the film industry, Stoppa frequently found himself typecast into supporting character roles or cast as cynical, opportunistic villains. He openly struggled with this dynamic, privately viewing his prolific motion picture work primarily as a financial necessity to fund his stage endeavors. For Stoppa, finding creative fulfillment in the movies was a constant challenge as his true artistic passion and personal satisfaction remained strictly anchored to the theater. Paolo Stoppa spent his later years living quietly in Rome, following his retirement from screen acting in 1983. After the death of his wife and longtime stage partner Rina Morelli in 1976, he maintained a highly selective involvement in theater, dedicating time to passion projects that reflected his love for live performance. However, his activities became progressively limited due to age-related health issues and a grueling battle with leukemia. Stoppa passed away in Rome, Italy, on May 1, 1988. At the age of 81 from complications related to the disease. His funeral chamber was fittingly set up in the foyer of his artistic home, the Teatro Eliseo, before a grand ceremony at Sant'Ignazio Church. At 2026, nearly 4 decades after his passing, Stoppa remains celebrated as a pillar of 20th-century Italian arts, with his legacy continuously honored through posthumous exhibitions, film restorations, and enduring critical acclaim. Once Upon a Time in the West isn't just a movie. It's a testament to a golden era of filmmaking. Seeing where the cast is now allows us to honor their enduring contribution to the arts. We hope this tribute touched your heart as much as it did ours. Was there a specific moment from the film that stayed with you? Leave a comment and like the video to show your support.